Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated.
And I'm Boris from Boredom Sated.
We are continuing our creature comparison. Today, we are going back to the undead. We are going to talk today about the Grave Knight / Death Knight.
Yes, Grave Knights from Pathfinder 2e and Death Knights from D&D 5th edition.
Now, most people, if you think Death Knight, the first thing you're going to think of is, isn't that class from WoW? That's going to be the first thing a lot of people think of. The way a Death Knight works is it's a famous kind of figure because it's not a skeleton, it's not a lich, it's not a wight, it's an undead malevolent force in plate armor that's there to mess you up.
Yep.
So the general gist of the history of the Death Knight is, at least for fantasy purposes, is it's either an undead, it's a good person who's been cursed, or a paladin who has been cursed by something, basically to turn into an undead evil version of themselves. The current version's idea is that they are basically a paladin who was murdered in some malevolent way and has turned themselves into a Death Knight. The current version in 5th edition is based on Lord Soth, a famous Death Knight from Dragonlance.
Right. Although Death Knights did exist prior to the release of Dragonlance in D&D, and we saw Death Knight in the D&D cartoon in one of the episodes, who redeemed himself in the end and became the paladin that he was.
So again, the base idea here is that Death Knight is a paladin in general, is a paladin who falls from grace, dies horribly, and is seeking atonement from the grave.
Yep.
Now, that's the general concept in 5th edition. In Pathfinder, it's a little different.
Yes, in Pathfinder, it's more of the armor of some evil being is adorned or cursed, and you put it on, and you don't necessarily have to be a paladin to put it on, or a champion in that case, and it gives you certain abilities. And the interesting aspect in Pathfinder 2e, they made the Grave Knight as a template. So even though they do have a base creature, you can increase or decrease the power based upon the living creature that adorned the armor.
Yeah, so the Grave Knight is an interesting idea because of the fact that, again, it's an item. You can run a campaign based on someone putting on the Grave Knight armor and needing them to be redeemed. You can also run a campaign based on a Death Knight, you needing to help a Death Knight redeem himself. So There's lots of ways to do that. There's not as much, again, general history about the way this works because of the fact that this is a concept that's more based in D&D lore than it is in anything else. But they're cool, which is the reason why we wanted to do this.
They're definitely cool. For one of their best abilities that everybody knows them is to throw a really, really kick-ass fireball.
Yeah. So we'll get started with that. In 5th edition, first of all, the Death Knight is CR 17. AC 20 matters. AC 20, first of all, is quite high. However, the reason why I mention it is because he has parry as a reaction, where he can raise his AC by 6 for against a single attack each round, which is fantastic. AC 26, that's high.
Yep.
That's very, very high.
Especially for a 17th.
That's high
CR.
for everything in Pathfinder, in D&D. In 5th edition, 26 is very, very, very high. Because like the highest plus to hit you're going to get is going to be like 12.
Yeah. Yep.
So, the thing that we were just talking about, giant fireball, Hellfire Orb. The Death Knight hurls a magical ball of fire that explodes at a point it can see within 120 feet. Each creature, it's basically a fireball that does 10d6 damage, but it also does 10d6 necrotic damage, so it's a 20d6 fireball.
Yep.
Whereas...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we'll get to yours in a
Yeah,
sec.
I just wanted to compare it to the Grave Knight. Whereas the Grave Knight, it's a cone. It's not really a fireball, but it still does 1d12 damage for every 2 levels of the underlying creature. So if you're comparing at 17th, that would be 8d12s.
Yeah, which is 8d12 is comparable damage to 12d6 or to 16d6, which is
Yep.
solid damage. Again, a little bit of a difference, because again, you've got to remember that Pathfinder hit points are a lot higher than they are in 5th edition, so there's that to contend with.
Yep.
The other thing that we're going to mention, of course, is that the Death Knight is a big martial class. They have spell slots in this. They are the 17th level character, and they can cast up to 5th level spells, which is nice. They mostly necrotic spells, because of the fact that, again, the idea here is that they're undead paladins. So they can cast 5th level spells because that's how high paladins can cast.
Right. Uh, whereas in the Pathfinder, they do not get spells, but they do improve significantly, relatable comparatively to Pathfinder characters in their martial capabilities. They get a bonus to their attack rolls. So if you put a fighter or barbarian in this, they become even better. They improve their AC, their saving throws, their perception, all their skills by 1. So whatever your skill sets are, you get 1 as if you were 1 level higher, and your hit points by 5, and your damage increases by 1 too.
Yeah, so there's the template to be able to put the Hell Knight on there, the Grave Knight on there is nice.
Yes.
The attack for the Hell Knight, the Death Knight is quite good. It doesn't do that much damage, but it does get to add 4d8 necrotic to all of its attacks, which is pretty damn high.
Yep.
Anyway, also they are one of the few creatures that multi-attacks 3. So they get 3 base attacks per round, which is huge. For a non-legendary creature, the Death Knight is very, very strong.
Yes. And the same about the Grave Knight. With all those bonuses, plus all the other capabilities, they get Weapon Master, they get Ruinous Weapons, so any weapon they have improves to across the board with different ruins. So it's a really martial, kick-ass character.
So as you can see, the one main thing we have to mention here is, because of the fact that if for Pathfinder 2, it is mainly based on a template, they give a base version, and it's a 12th level creature, which is a solid creature. It's quite strong for its level. But you can add so many things onto it. There's a lot of work that you can do to make it so the Pathfinder 2 version is much more customizable. Whereas the Death Knight is just a straight up beater, hits hard, has resistances, has great, it's a great character. It's a great, it's, in my opinion, it's a really good thing to have to put as like the boss's main protector.
Yep.
In a campaign, and it's a good idea. Whereas, of course, the Grave Knight is more of a, you put this armor on someone who was good, or you put this armor on someone, and then you've got to find a way to be able to put them down, but without killing them, because you don't want to kill them. You want to find a way to remove the armor.
Right.
It's a completely different style of concept.
One of the interesting things, though, in Pathfinder, they have created the Grave Knight. So the Grave Knight can give a piece of its armor to somebody, and they are its squire. They have a telepathic link to them, and can do suggestion on them at will. But the real benefit is if you are able to destroy the original Grave Knight, the piece of armor starts expanding, and in 1d10 days, it forms a Grave Knight armor, and the person that gave you that piece, takes over.
That kind of sucks for that guy.
Yes, it does. Yes.
So, but again, it just shows that there's a major difference between the way the two builds are done and the difference between the thought process behind creation. Now, you can also make the argument that these are not the same creature, and it's a difficult way to compare them, but the general idea is it's still a powerful, good character, usually that was cursed or something, or killed in a malevolent way, and this is their spirit living on, one through the grave knight, one through the armor, and one through just becoming a powerful undead creature.
Yes, definitely. So, I guess to summarize, they're both really good character classes. They're both designed really well for martial type of player characters to, as a martial class. The Grave Knight and Pathfinder 2, I think, gives you a lot more options with role playing, and overall gives you a lot more options as a creature, or can be a really good ongoing villain across a long-term campaign. So my statement is they're both good, but the Grave Knight in Pathfinder really takes the overall role-playing and capability lead.
Well, yeah, and as usual, the Pathfinder 2 has more role-playing base in it. It has a lot more stuff for that. But at the same time, the Death Knight is a classic villain. Again, Lord Soth is a very, very powerful and fun villain to be able to play around with. And it can obviously be the boss of a campaign. You can add more abilities to it. And again, you're a high-level paladin. You can cast 5th-level paladin spells. 5th-level paladin spells are really, really nasty.
Yeah.
So I think both of them are very good. I do agree that the Pathfinder 2 version has a lot more role-playing aspect to it. I think for their CR, the base creatures, both of them are quite good. I don't think either of them are massively over or underpowered. And again, it's really based on what your goal is for its use as to which one is really that much stronger. So, I mean, I can see, again, the template being able to be done fun for a homemade campaign. But if you are trying to do something on the quicker and easier side, just being like, yeah, I'm going to throw a Death Knight at the party and not have to worry about all that other stuff, it's a cool villain to be able to throw at a high-level party.
Yes, totally agree.
So, tell us your opinions. Tell us if you think that this is a fair comparison to make. They're both Death Knight. They're both kind of the Death Knight that you think of when you think of a Death Knight, like plate wearer, undead, evil guy, all that kind of stuff. Let us know your experience. Let us know your thoughts on the subject.
But please like or dislike, but tell us why you didn't like us. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I'm Boris.
I'm Jonathan. Have a good day, guys.